Hey guys, welcome to episode 2 of Develop Your Element Unplugged, the official podcast of Develop Your Element. And we're super excited. This week we're going to be covering regenerative spaces. And I'm accompanied here by my mother, Berenice. For those that don't know me, I'm Jannik. And so basically regenerative spaces, it's one of those things we talk a lot about in Develop Your Element. It's one of those things that we feel are crucial to our well-being, basically. And for those that don't know what regenerative spaces are, it's basically those activities, those environments, those things that fill us with energy and with inner peace. And it can be anything from finding the ideal level of stimulus for your personality. For extroverts, that means increasing social stimulus, more change, more movement, more physical movement. For introverts, that might mean finding certain tranquility, structure, order. And for ambiverts, somewhere in between. And when we talk about these things, we have to also be careful not to generalize just based on personalities and understand we're a mix of many different personalities. So in different moments, we need different types of stimulus. But it also depends on our personal interest, our goals, our motivators. So there are certain things in our lives that motivate us. So today we're going to be discussing how to implement these regenerative spaces in our lives in different ways, how to find them, how to find certain balance between our personalities, because sometimes we have contrasting personalities within ourselves that need different things, and how we can stimulate all sides of our personality. Let's get started. Basically, I think it's a good... Let's start a little bit with how we started implementing regenerative spaces in our life.
Yeah, because I can say it actually saved my life. I had an aneurysm at one point, and we were in Brazil. I was in Brazil in a tour, finishing one of my tours, about to embark to a tour of Europe and then China, when I had my aneurysm and I had to stop. And I was very lucky that Jannik was coming to Brazil and arrived to Brazil while I was recovering. He didn't know. I didn't want him to get worried because one of his personalities, one of the elements...
I'm a master at worrying.
Yeah.
I worry on steroids.
Yes, exactly. Because one of the elements that are part of his personality is the earth element, which is always taking care of everybody and worrying about everybody and wants everybody to be happy and peaceful. And his other energy, his other element is fire, that is steroids,
Well, basically my fire side wants to find solutions quickly.
Yeah, so I didn't want him to worry. I wanted to have everything under control before I informed him. And he was giving classes in Sao Paulo, I was in Sao Paulo at the time. And I visited him and I took a class with him and I said, "Sweetie, I'm having problems regenerating. What is it about regeneration I'm not understanding because I am not feeling very well?" And I explained what it was happening. And he said to me, "Oh, you're really just regenerating one part of your personality, which is also fire. But your earthly side, we share the same elements, requires a different kind of regeneration." And as soon as he told me and reminded me how to implement that part and start regenerating, I started feeling better within days. And I think I just took 15 days before I started my tour. And since then, I haven't stopped. And it's really amazing because it's sometimes counterintuitive and sometimes it's really what you require. And we don't take the time because we are so busy with our lives, our daily lives, our daily worries, our daily commitments that we forget to stop sometimes.
It's very easy to procrastinate these things because one of the things that happens with regenerative spaces is a lot of those activities, a lot of those environments that fill us with energy, that give us that inner peace, sometimes feel like a distraction. and feel like we're being irresponsible when we step into those environments.
Or a waste of time completely, because we need to get ahead. You know?
I mean, it happens to me a lot that I want to be productive on my fiery side. I want to be like working and responsible and advancing all the time. And sometimes I kind of force productivity, and it's very important to kind of step away, recharge my battery, and then get back and be more productive and do more in less time. And then on kind of my earthly side, I want to take care of everyone. I want everyone to be happy. But like they say in airplanes, first, if the cabin pressure goes down in an airplane, first you got to take the oxygen mask, put it on yourself, and then on other people. Because if you faint or if you die, you can't help other people.
Exactly.
So you do got to take care of your basic needs, so that you have more to give. So one of the things we talk about with regenerative spaces is we got to have these internal dialogues with our own personalities, because sometimes when we are drained, when we are burned out, when we are stressed, we start forcing things, and we stop thinking logically.
Exactly.
We stop actually taking actions that will take us to our goals. We try to force our goals. And in the case of my mother, that story she was mentioning in where she had the aneurysm and she was basically pushing herself. What had happened is we were going through certain transitions in our lives, and she had always been more earthy. She had been more ambiverted, almost introverted for most of her life. And then she stepped into a very fiery, extroverted role, traveling the world, constantly touring, doing events. And she didn't take time to breathe. She didn't take time to rest. She didn't take time for herself to disconnect from all of that. So while all of that was great for stimulating one side of her personality, there was another side of her personality that she started neglecting. And while we don't directly talk about health in developed development, we don't want to give any wrong ideas. We do talk about how when we step outside of our comfort zone or outside of our natural biological personality for too long, or neglect our regenerative spaces, forget to recharge, we do have certain effects in our body. And this is very basic stuff. I mean, think of an introvert trying to go on stage. Think of an extrovert trying to be quiet all day. I mean, think of any person trying to do something that's totally against their nature. Their heart will beat faster. The muscles will get more tense. They will start sweating more. There'll be a lot of things that happen that...
Or anxieties.
Anxieties kick in.
Super stress. And all those things produce other hormones that are not so easy to digest for the body.
Yeah, no, there's basically what happens is we put our bodies through a lot of extra stress when we don't cover our basic needs. So we don't want to give the wrong idea when we talk about how we feel better when we have overcome certain things. It's not that this is something that we recommend as a medical solution or anything like that. But it's like a stress relief. It's just basic well-being. If there's something that an activity or an environment where you go and step into that environment or that activity, and that fills you with a bit of energy, a bit of inner peace, that is powerful. And that's something that we often neglect, and we often don't even know what we need, because we are told since we're little, you should go rest, you should go lie down, you should go. But for extroverts, often when they are exhausted, when they're drained, when they're stressed, they have to go out. They have to go out and see people. Socialize. They have to move. They have to socialize. I mean, I work with a lot of extroverts, and at the end of a long work day, instead of laying down on the couch and watching Netflix, they have to go out and see people. Sometimes even during the day, they have to go for a walk and see people and talk to people. And we cannot rob ourselves of those things. But we also have to have another conversation when we talk about regenerative spaces. They cannot be an escape. For a lot of people, when they learn about these things, it's, I'm doing this for my well-being, I'm doing this. And sometimes they get stuck in those regenerative spaces. But if you get stuck in those regenerative spaces, that means they're no longer regenerating you, or there's something in your life that's draining you and stressing you so much that you're avoiding it rather than dealing with the issue. So while regeneration, recharging your inner batteries is a very powerful, very logical step, you have to make sure that it's an efficient process and not an escape. I know a lot of introverts that when a lot of stressful things happen, they go lock themselves in the rooms and maybe don't come out for days or weeks or even months if it's really stressful, their environment. I know extroverts that might go partying every single night and avoiding all types of responsibility, and that's not healthy either. We don't want to go to the extremes with these things. All we want to make sure is that you feel the how should I say, that you give yourself enough respect and self-worth to give yourself those spaces that recharge you. And that's something that we often get so carried away with what's important in the moment, short term, that we forget about our long-term goals. And by doing that, we rob ourselves of our regenerative spaces.
I think that's a very good conversation. We want regenerative spaces. We want to recharge our battery, but always be aware which are our long-term goals and our short-term goals and how they are interconnected. Because when we are aware of that, we know how much we have to regenerate to create whatever we want. That's finish our short-term goals or have a little more battery for those long-term goals that require extra effort. And maybe we should talk a little about what are the 3 kinds of regenerative spaces.
Yeah, so what we do is to make it easier to implement and have fewer excuses to when it comes to regenerative spaces. We talk about 3 different types of regeneration. So we talk about active regeneration. That's the most powerful, most efficient. That's when you actively seek the ideal environment, the ideal stimulus, the ideal activities that just fill you with energy or give you that inner peace. That means going for a run, going and playing video games, watching Netflix, reading a book, depending
having
on
coffee with
having
your
coffee
friends, having a family reunion, a peaceful in a peaceful setting. Each of us requires different things.
Yes, and as we mentioned in the beginning, extroverts need higher social stimulus, higher physical movement. Introverts, lower physical movement, lower social stimulus. Ambiverts, somewhere in between. And you have to...
But for ambiverts, the important thing is not the activity, is who you are doing it with. For them, the social connection, the personal connection with people, doing it with people they love or people that will receive them or create
the idea with the thing about ambiverts is they don't go to either extreme. They're not fully extroverted nor fully introverted, or they are a mix of the two. And with ambiverts, the important thing is exactly having a varying degree of different types of stimulus, but it's very important that they share those experiences with people they care about, because they do have a bit of that kind of, how shall I say, they do seek that kind of social aspect, but because they don't go to extremes, it can be a very tranquil social thing. And actually, introverts as well, let me just mention, they are social beings. Introverts, they just need lower social stimulus, but they do tend to seek out 1 or 2 people that are close to them to spend a lot of time with. They just get overwhelmed with many people. So basically, introverts, they're happy when they're 1, 2, 3 people. Then 4 gets more stressful, 3 more stressful, up all until we reach around 7. I don't remember the exact number, but then all of a sudden it starts getting more comfortable again, because if it's a lot of people, introverts can actually have a conversation and cut out the world. Especially for metallic people, for airy people, they have a harder time disconnecting from all the stimulus around, but that had to be clarified. So anyway, returning to active regeneration. It's those activities that, based on your personality or mix of personalities and your interest and your goals, that fill you with energy and fill you with certain inner peace or tranquility. Then we talk about the passive regeneration. Those are all the environments, how they affect you. So maybe your neighborhood, maybe how you decorate your room or organize your room. Basically, if you enter that environment, that space, will that fill you with energy or will that stress you out? So for introverts, that might mean having a little bit more logic, structure, organization, privacy. For extroverts, it might mean having more colors, more stimulus, more lights. I mean, it really depends on the individuals, but find the ideal way of organizing your space so that just being in that space, you're recharged. I'll give you an example. My sister, she's primarily introverted. Unfortunately, she couldn't be here today, but she moved to Japan.
From Canada
to Japan, and we all thought she was crazy because at that point she didn't speak to people. She didn't. She depended on us more extroverted members of the family to help her with a lot of the social responsibilities.
She hadn't even been on a taxi or any public transportation by herself ever.
No, she really hadn't. So we all thought it was a little weird, a little crazy. But she was insistent that was the best thing for her, and in many ways she was right, because what happened? Japan is a culture that's more introverted, it's more organized, it's very safe. People respect personal space a lot. It's an ideal environment for introverts. So what happened is when she moved to Japan, she started recharging her introverted side just being there, and she was able to unlock a secondary extroverted side, because all of a sudden her introverted side had the flexibility to allow her extroverted side to operate.
Yeah, because when your internal battery is up, you are more flexible. Yeah. So that helps a lot.
Yeah, and I mean, if you look at my sister, the ones of you that have followed us for a while now, you'll notice that she has a lot of extroverted energy. She can do a lot of public speaking. She can do a lot of extroverted things, because she does have some extroverted elements inside of her, but when she's very drained in her introverted side, that kind of takes over and kind of shuts down her extroverted side. And we all have combinations where sometimes one side might kind of drain the other. And by having our spaces organized in a way that just being in those spaces helps unlock us, that's powerful. I mean, Alvaro, one of the Spanish-speaking instructors that'll be on the program here in the afternoon in Spanish, when he got his office, his new office in his previous job, he would just walk into the office and he'd get very stressed, very tense, and it was just like, this is overwhelming. And then he changed the furniture. He did certain things that for his personality were powerful, so he's fiery personality primarily. So he put a little picture frame with all his achievements, all the famous people he had met, all the conferences he had given, all these kind of exciting things that he had achieved that could regenerate his fiery side. And then when he did that, he started having more fiery furniture, things that kind of worked for his personality. Then he started being more productive, feeling better, being happier in that space. And it's something that I've seen many times, that people, when they're kind of very stressed, very drained, one of the very powerful things they can do is just organize your office, organize your car, organize your bedroom, organize your living room, so that when you're in that space, it just fills you with energy and it fills you with a certain inner peace.
I remember when we moved to Canada from Denmark, I was finishing my PhD. You were teenagers, and the house was a mess because although it was a very large house, it was smaller than the one we had previously. So there were a lot of boxes all over the place. And I was getting very drained, and the whole family was not happy. And I thought, okay, this is not working for me. And the first thing I did was to start organizing the places the spaces where we spend most of the time. And it was so overwhelming. I didn't have time that I just started with the little corners. And little by little, the family really became much more peaceful, and they were able to concentrate more in school, all of us, because my ex-husband and I are academics, so we needed to have that peace of mind to be able to analyze things and work better. And the change was immediate. I mean, within a week, we were all functioning much better. And you have to find, sometimes you share spaces with other people, so find things that stimulate everybody. And let me just say, we have an episode, the first episode of Develop Your Element Unplugged. We talk about each element and what regenerates them a little bit. We will talk a little more in a few minutes. So we will talk specifically what regenerates each of them. But if you want to find more about Develop Your Element, please watch the previous.
The first episode covers kind of the basics of the different elements, the different personalities, the basic tools, and also on the website developyourElement.com. There's basically you can check out the 3 types of regeneration, the three states that we covered in the last episode, and the different elements, kind of the basics, so you can get a pretty good overview. And also here on the YouTube channel, there are videos with basics, and we will be releasing videos every single week as well. So that's something that you should check out and subscribe if you haven't already. So that the whole idea with passive regenerative spaces is that just find those environments that fill you with energy and organized environments that you have control over. So that might mean moving to a different neighborhood, might mean organizing your office differently or organizing your room differently. Just finding how to make the spaces where you spend the most time in, make them as comfortable as possible for you, and then just being there will help a lot.
Or go during the weekends.
Sure.
Go to those places, or your free time. Go to a place that regenerates you.
Which technically is more active.
Yes.
Regeneration is going to those places. But yes, if you start implementing it as a kind of routine to include those spaces, then then you can kind of say it's passive, in the sense that the idea of passive regeneration is that you don't have to think about it. You just have to be in those spaces, and that will give you that peace and tranquility, that energy, and things will just flow. Because the idea of splitting it up into 3 types of regeneration is that the more we diversify them, the easier it is to not forget them.
Exactly.
The final one is proactive regeneration, and that's doing all the things you're already doing, but in a way that's more how should I say, relaxing, or more comfortable, more stimulating for you. So that means, let's say you are at work, and the corporate culture at work might be very introverted, logical, structured, and you might start adapting to the expectations too much, and finding out how to allow yourself to kind of be a little bit more natural, escape to your natural environments, your more regenerative spaces. But also, like, what happens is there are a lot of myths. So I know a lot of people who have these ideas that to work in a certain role, they have to be a certain way. So academics, they feel that they have to be metallic, logical, structured, exact. People who work in the holistic industry or yoga or something like that, they might feel that they have to be very earthly, very relaxed, very tranquil, and that they can't be extroverted, that they can't be over the top. People who work in sales might feel that they have to be extroverted and really talk with a lot of energy. And while in some moments we have to have the flexibility to step into certain personalities, we have to be careful with those generalizations, because I've worked in many different environments. I've worked in office environments. I've worked in sales. I've done many different environments where there are a lot of stereotypes of how you should operate. And I've seen that many times the outliers, the people that step out of the expected, have even more impact. And I've seen very extroverted academics do very well. I've seen very introverted salespeople do very well, because an introverted salesperson might take more time to ask more questions, organize their thoughts, find a more suitable solution. They might be more educated on the solutions available. They might take more time to research things. So sometimes introverts actually perform better in sales than extroverts. All personalities can be great in sales. I've seen many times that allowing yourself to be a little bit more yourself as a base in whatever you do goes a long way. But you have to have the flexibility to step out of your comfort zone in key moments. And that's why we talk about the 3 different states, which we talked about in the previous episode, where we have to have the flexibility. We're not just one type of personality. We are multifaceted beings, and we have to be able to, to connect with the world and have an impact. We have to be flexible. We have to be able to step into what's required in the moment, but always return to our base, not lose ourselves due to fears or insecurities. And that's what happens a lot. I mean, it's our fear of judgment. It's a fear of failure. It's our fears of any type of resistance or rejection from other people that tends to make us adapt to what we think they expect from us. But many times by adapting too much, we drain ourselves, we get more stressed, and then we get less control of our personality, less flexibility, less generosity, less impact, and then we get rejected more. A lot of the rejection and failure that we face, it happens mostly when we're drained, when we're stressed, when we're burned out, when we're forcing things. So when we logically understand, if we allow ourselves to be ourselves a bit more, recharge ourselves, give ourselves a little bit more of the stimulus that kind of fills us, then we can be flexible in key moments.
Oh, definitely. When our battery is up, if somebody rejects you, you don't even care because you are feeling well. You are feeling good. So it's like, next. If you don't like me, who's next? But if your battery is drained, somebody just says that 100 people says nice things to you, and only one focus on your hair wasn't done properly, and you focus on that one, and you obsess about that one because you don't have the emotional intelligence. You don't have the confidence in that moment. So you are more in tune with the criticism than with the good things that people are saying about you or how people are reacting around you that you don't even notice.
One thing we sometimes talk about in developed development is if you're not failing, if you're not receiving rejection, if you are not reaching certain type of criticism, you're not innovating enough. You're not stepping out of your comfort zone. Because if you step out of your comfort zone, and if you, whether it be in the world of entrepreneurship or social media or in dating or in sales, whatever it may be, if you're not being rejected, you are not innovating enough.
Absolutely.
It's a very good measure. Obviously, that doesn't mean that you should not listen to feedback and you shouldn't grow, you shouldn't learn. You should definitely do that. But don't mistake criticism, feedback, and rejection as something fatal, as something that invalidates you.
And to get out of your comfort zone, you have to be a little uncomfortable.
Sure.
I mean, and what surprises me sometimes is the comfort zone has to become very, very uncomfortable for you to push yourself out of it. And it shouldn't be like that. It shouldn't be like that. It should be a conscious decision where you set your goals further away from your comfort zone and regenerate. So going out of your comfort zone should be a pleasurable thing if you recognize what it takes and charge your battery, your internal battery.
The first step, whenever you want to kind of grow and step out of your comfort zone, is you have to tell yourself that the goal is more important than the fears. When you decide that something is more important than the fear, then you can override that fear. But if you give more importance and reinforce the fear, then you get paralyzed.
No, if you make the criticism, if you make the rejection so important, it becomes fatal.
Yeah.
If not, it's just one of millions that don't agree with you. And sometimes we have this collective comfort zone. So people won't want you to get out of the comfort zone because that makes them uncomfortable, because they don't want to see that there's something outside.
There are people in your environment that the moment you start growing, they're going to criticize you. You're no longer one of us. You don't care about us. That's not you. Who do you think you are? Blah, blah, blah. I see it a lot. I mean, in personal development, we work with people from all walks of life. And the most common thing that I see with people who really choose to kind of level up in their lives is that the people that are surround those people that don't want to level up in their lives or too insecure or too stuck, they're going to judge them instead of celebrate them.
Absolutely.
And that can be a big problem, because I've seen a lot of people kind of advance very fast and then kind of fall back, and advance very fast and then fall back. And that's not the ideal route. I mean, it's okay to sometimes fall to get back up, because that might give you more energy to keep going, more motivation. But we don't want to end up in a vicious cycle. And there is something to be said about surrounding yourself with people who do inspire you, who do cheer you on, who do regenerate you. I mean, if you spend more time with people who regenerate you than drain you, great. If you spend more time with people who cheer you on than criticize you, great. But you should also have people who criticize you, that critique you, but in a constructive manner, in a manner where they demonstrate that they believe in you and that they're kind of helping you out. Because there are some people and there are some personalities that demonstrate love, affection, and support by being critical. I mean, metallic people, we've said this before. One of the ways that they demonstrate love and support is being critical to help you down the right path. If they didn't care about you, they wouldn't take that time.
A fire person will try to push you.
Yeah.
Sometimes a little before you think you're ready. And you need that kind of friends. You need that kind of friends that really inspire you for more, or push you or advise you to create more. But notice when they celebrate when you are doing well. I think that's the clue, to know whether they are just giving you advice, pretending with your friends, and from their limitations, from their fears, from whatever, they are really trying to push you down.
Yeah,
and those that celebrate, when you achieve something, they are there with you celebrating.
Yeah, I mean, this goes into a whole other conversation, but talking about how to, when to listen and receive advice. I personally have various different guidelines. One of the things is, would I change roles with that person? Would I want to be in that person's positions? If so, I will take more of their feedback than if it's someone who's really stuck, very paralyzed, very drained, trying to give me advice. That's not to say that I cannot receive and learn from the person who's drained and stuck, but I will obviously put a little bit more emphasis on the ones that I would like to learn something from, someone close to me that I might think, that person, he does this very well. I want a little bit more of that in my life. The other thing is, we have to also be aware of the people around us that we are receiving advice from, feedback from. You know, when they do it, are they doing it with full contexts or only their own context? And that's something we talk a lot about, because if they don't have enough context, they're going to give you advice based on their conclusions, premature conclusions. They will give you advice based on what worked for them instead of taking into consideration what you need. And it's very, very important that when you receive advice, that you give enough context to the person giving you advice so that you get better advice. What does this mean? Basically, if you want to receive better advice from people, take more time to explain your situation, your goals, how you function, your instincts, your thoughts. The more information you give the people giving you advice, the better advice they'll give you. If you just tell them, I'm stuck, I don't know what to do, you're not giving them enough to work with. But if you take the time to tell them, listen, this is the situation, this is how it's looking. I mean, think of it as if you have a meeting at work, where you want to fix a problem, you're going to analyze things. You're going to have a discussion of the situation where you want to be, where you're not there yet. You should do that in your own life. And if someone criticizes you and critiques you without having all that context, don't get carried away with it. Don't give it too much importance, because they're probably giving you advice based on what they needed to hear when they were your age, or what worked for them, or what they think will work for you, but without maybe knowing everything.
There are people that just love to give advice to feel more important too.
Sure.
And we have to take that into account. If they don't take time to listen to you, if they don't take time to understand the context, they are not really interested in you. So be aware of that. Or they might not just be regenerated enough to be giving you the best advice because they are so drained. So take that into account. And also notice when you have those friendships that you are there, you have a friendship in misery or in tragedy. Oh, it's because we are both of us so fucked up, or we are both of us, our boyfriends left us, or some similar tragic story, and that's the basis of your story together. Sometimes when you have those kind of friends, they will want to stay in their misery for a little longer than you. So notice when you are getting out of that, they will also try to invite you back into the misery, back into the tragedy, back into whatever it is. Notice that too.
Yeah, I mean, that's another thing. And remember that everything we talk about here in Develop Development goes both ways, both in terms of how you receive things and how you give things. So how you give advice, how you support your friends, you have to take into consideration their needs, their context, their personalities. And yes, reinforcing victim mentality is very dangerous as well. There is anytime there's been some type of tragic event, a period of mourning is obviously okay and a healthy process. And anytime that someone is going through a process that's difficult for them, showing them empathy, showing them that you're there to support them, is positive. But sometimes our instincts can be counterproductive. So what do I mean by this? Whenever you have any type of victim or any type of person who's had a tragic experience, remind them that yes, they are a victim and that you're there for them, and create a healthy environment for them, but also remind them that they are a survivor. Remind them that they're strong. Remind them that maybe other people in their situation would have made totally different choices. I mean, it depends on the context, but I mean, there are many times where people, I see a lot of people that when they come out of a difficult situation, many times they're doing a lot of positive things. Maybe they're growing as people, and they're not seeing that because they only focus on the bad. And I mean, there has to be a place for both: mourning, analyzing, learning from what happened, having depending on what type of situation it is, having a period of maybe forgiveness or not forgiveness. That's up to you. But when you have that period, just don't get stuck with only that. Make sure you have both sides. Having that side is healthy and a process that you should go through. Some people it takes a long time, some people a little time, but the other side is reminding yourself or reminding the person that you're kind of supporting that they are a survivor, that they're strong, that they have achieved a lot. That because a lot of times when we come out of, let's say, an abusive relationship or have a loss in our lives or a difficult period, we also start kind of forgetting all the beautiful things that we do, all the beautiful things, and that where we grow, and we have to make sure to have a bit of balance there.
Yes, because when you focus on the things you don't like in the stories of tragedy, in the bad things, you are really asking more of that, because what you resist persists. Yeah. So you want to start bringing some gratitude into your life, bringing some positive things into your life, starting to recognize those small achievements that sometimes appear to be very small, that are very big. Just that you're starting to see that you're in an abusive relationship. Just the ability of recognizing that is amazing, because often we apologize for the abusers. Often we apologize for those
things. We justify things that are not good, and we enforce them, and we tell ourselves that that's what we deserve, and we tell ourselves, and that's why, I mean, this conversation is I mean, a delicate one, because every person's situation is different. They have different contexts, different experiences, and we don't want to generalize. But in terms of the topic today is regeneration, and one of the biggest draining factors in your life is when there's something that stresses you, worries you, makes you feel less happy with your life. Abusive people who drain you all the time. I mean, those things affect you. So it has to be part of the conversation. But the conversation needs to be about how do we regenerate even during times of adversity.
Exactly.
How do we regenerate during times of high stress, times of conflicts with other people? And yes, when we're in a regenerative state, we have more defenses, we have more flexibility, we have more empathy. And sometimes something that we might perceive as something abusive or mean in one moment, we might receive it as totally logical and normal in another. That's not the same as justifying real abuse. And we're not here to say what's real abuse or what's not. But there are times that by being a certain personality, we receive from other personalities with a lot of resistance, and no, that's bad. And when we're more regenerated, we can be more empathetic with those differences in personalities. So being empathetic with differences is important. But yes, also filtering out maybe those people who drain us, who constantly influence us in a negative way. And that requires a certain level of confidence, because sometimes when we are in those environments, we tell ourselves, we will never find someone better. We'll never find someone who does this. And we focus on the few positive things. I can tell from my experience with very abusive relationships that I've been in, because I've been a little bit of a magnet of abusive relationships for a period of my life, that whenever I was in an abusive relationship, I would justify everything they did and focus on the few, like, very, very awesome things about them, because everyone has awesome things. And I'd be like, where am I going to find someone who has this thing? Where am I going to find someone who has that thing? And it can be hard to have enough confidence to know that you can find someone who has everything you want and more. And that can be in a friend, that can be in a partner, it can be in a business partner, it can be in a romantic relationship, it can be in a lot of things.
And when you start finding things to be grateful about, include yourself. When you start including yourself and the ability you have to survive, to start noticing things that you didn't notice before, start recognizing that you're looking for new things, because you would not be listening to us if you were not looking for something different. So start recognizing those things. When you have gratitude for yourself, when you are grateful for you and your achievements, you don't expect anybody else to see them. You don't need anybody else to see them, because you are seeing them yourself. That allows you to start finding different people that have more gratitude. So if you start including gratitude in your life for yourself and demanding gratitude from others, not like you go to your best friend and say, I expect you to be grateful. Just telling yourself, I will want to find people that have that desire to be grateful, then you're raising the bar for yourself, and that allows you to come out much easier.
Yeah. No, I mean, there are many things we can do to regenerate more, and we'll get into the different specifics of each element here in a second. But before we get into that, we have to understand that there's a difference between regenerative activities and energy leaks in your life. So think of it as, for example, if we take this glass, if there's a leak here, it's going to start draining out, right? And let's say this is then your energy. If there's a big leak, you can regenerate it, you can fill it up as much as possible, but you need very, very high pressure water to maintain the glass full, and you need constant water flow. If you seal this up, you can have much slower, less frequent filling of water to maintain this full, right? So, yes, we're going to talk about all the things that can fill your energy, but we also have to talk about how do we patch up those leaks. So find the things in your life that are draining you the most and deal with them. Maybe it means regenerate actively first before you face them to have the energy to do it, but you have to deal with them.
Yeah.
So that's one part of the conversation. And in other episodes, we might go a little bit more into detail with those. But do start reflecting, what parts of my life regenerate me the most? What drain me the most? Can you spend more time in the activities that regenerate you? Can you do something about the situations that drain you? And that will help you a lot.
And as Jannik says, once you start looking at these things, and once you start regenerating yourself, you will find that some of the things you thought were annoying or a big source of leakage is not really, because when you're regenerated,
your defenses are higher. I mean, and you're more empathetic. So I mean, one thing that happens a lot is a lot of the conflicts we have in our daily lives actually happen because of differences in personality. And many times happen because you yourself might be drained. So again, it's always hard to have these conversations without taking the context of each individual. And I mean, you guys are welcome to share your context in the chat, and we'll be more than happy to kind of tackle them head on. But there are some people who feel that the world is against them and everyone is abusive towards them, and maybe they themselves are not being empathetic enough. And there are some people that legitimately are facing real struggles that are not themselves, and they might be blaming themselves. So there are many different possibilities. So all we want to give you is different tools so that you can explore what is really your situation, what is your context, and that requires different steps. But there is no one-size-fits-all in development. We always talk about that. There's no one-size-fits-all solution. There's not one single exercise that will fix everyone's problems. I mean, that's not realistic. It's not. I mean, it's unhealthy to think that way. Let's face it. Because if you're looking for that next fix, I'm going to find this one thing that'll fix all my problems. No. What we're talking about, and the reason why we're talking about this is we have to take responsibility and control of our lives. And that looks differently for every person. Sometimes it means cutting out certain people. Sometimes it means regenerating ourselves to be more empathetic and more understanding. It can mean different things for different people. And just find what works for you.
And I would suggest start by regenerating yourself before taking major decisions.
Yes. Because when you're drained, you're going to be naturally more negative. You're going to be naturally more sensitive sometimes. You're going to be naturally more reactive, more forceful about your way of doing things. And when you're drained, when you're regenerated, you'll be more empathetic and more understanding. And we have this conversation about both sides because and this is something that for the ones of you that work in personal development or any type of leadership role, there's always two stories to every side. And someone might come to you and act like they are the victim, and they might be an abuser themselves. And someone might give you one story, but you always have, and both of them might be victims, and both of them might be abusers. I mean, there's so many variables and so many different situations, so never ever assume that the story that you're hearing from one person is the only story and the complete picture.
How many people use their victim story to victimize others? To say, you have to take care of me because I'm the victim here. You have to listen to me for 3 hours every day, the same story day after day because I'm the victim here.
Yeah.
Yes, be aware of that. And let's start now what regenerates us, because that's a lot of fun. Actually, I love it.
We have one question here from
cool.
Fernanda. How do you deal with a person who is looking for one specific answer? It depends on the specific person and their context. Sometimes you can give them an answer that will help them a lot. Sometimes not. But the first thing you should do is ask more questions than give answers. I mean, it's like in sales. The more questions you ask, the higher probability you have of recommending the right solution, the right product or service. The same goes in personal development. If someone gives you a lot of context, a lot of understanding of their situation, you have more information to give them an educated kind of idea or suggestion. The less information you have, the less context, the understanding you have to give them a suggestion. So ask a lot of questions, try to understand their situation, and maybe you have something valuable to give. And when if there's someone who really very clearly is looking for one specific thing, and you can very clearly tell that it's more complicated than that, don't be afraid of saying, I don't have a single answer. I don't have one solution that's going to fix all your problems. I mean, you have to be honest. Don't lead people on. Don't tell them that this is going to fix all your problems. No. I mean, tell them what you see and try to make it as educated as possible.
Yeah, always ask a lot of questions, listen attentively, actively, and together find a way to find a solution or an answer.
Yeah. Okay, so let's get into the elements and how to generate them. So we've already said multiple times, extroverts more higher social stimulus, more physical movement. Introverts lower social stimulus, lower physical movement.
We are showing this because these are the elements, the symbols of the elements.
So it's a progressive scale. We call it an energy scale. We start with the most extroverted and we finish with the most introverted. So that gives you an idea of the intensity and the type of environment just from that alone. Now, for those that don't know the elements, I recommend you watch episode 1 to get a little bit more context, or go on our website, developtheelement.com, and there you can see the basic descriptions on the front page of the different elements that will give you certain clarity. So for the electric people, I'll give you express clarity. The most extroverted, youthful, playful, full of ideas, personality that really needs constant change and adventure. They regenerate how? With a lot of adventure, a lot of fun, a lot of playfulness, a lot of jokes, a lot of constant change. They need to move all the time. They need to get out. Well, not all this, not every single moment of the day, but they need more change. For them, the more time they're sitting still, being quiet, being organized and structured, the more they're going to get anxiety, the more they're going to get stressed. The more flexibility they have to move around, talk to people, socialize, have fun, make jokes, make a lot of things, the better.
Yeah, and if they cannot move physically, for example, if you really need to be sitting down for some, let them multitask. Have different stimulus, little toys, little things they can play with on their desk. Different things, so they are stimulated in different ways at while they are sitting down.
Yeah. And then if we get into fiery people, they are an extroverted type, but very focused, very productive, very natural leaders. Not always the best leaders. If they're drained and insecure, that's not a great recipe. But when they're regenerated and confident, great. But they naturally look for leadership positions. So they regenerate a lot with productivity, with results, with prestige, with things that make them feel powerful, make them feel impactful. If they can inspire someone, that helps them a lot. But really seeing constant progress is very powerful for them. There's nothing worse for them than feeling stuck, feeling like progress is slowing down. That is very stressful for fire people. And they respond very well also to compliments and to positive feedback and things like that. They receive that very well. And even though they're extroverts, there's a very clear difference. Electric people, they want a lot of adventure, playtime, disconnecting from work and all those sort of stuff. Whereas fiery people, if they have found their passion project, if their job really fulfills them, then they're going to be happier at work than maybe disconnecting. They might feel anxious I need to get back to work. And for them, it can be a bit of a struggle to disconnect from work. But, I mean, everyone needs to disconnect from work sometimes. And that's something I'm saying out loud so that I hear it myself. So those are the basics of the extroverts. Now, going into the ambiverts, we have the aquatic type and the earthy type. And the aquatic type is more emotional, sentimental, cares about very deep relationships. So how do they regenerate?
Well, they're very romantic people. So doing romantic gestures regenerate them. Having that deep connection with somebody, looking in the eyes. If you're like with your iPad or your telephone all the time while talking with them, they will feel disconnected from you.
They'll feel ignored. They'll feel neglected. They need your presence, very, very, very intense presence.
Yeah. So you have to look at them deep into their eyes. Ask questions, personal questions. Remember what they said to you. And go for an outing, whatever, together. Even under a blanket watching a movie. It's something that would regenerate.
Yeah, they like all the cutesy things, but they also like thought being put into things. So, like,
absolutely.
For example, when you give a gift to an aquatic type, the most important thing about that gift is the story behind why you got that gift. If you give them a gift without a little card saying something loving, or without telling them, oh, I was in the store and I saw this and I just couldn't stop thinking of you and I had to get it. Something like that, wow, that regenerates an aquatic type immensely.
And remembering what they said last time.
Oh, yeah, and paying attention to them actively and demonstrating that you kind of value them and pay attention to them is powerful.
And if you are an aquatic person, look how to express your feelings, not just to one person. Something that I see a lot with clients, it's the empty nest syndrome. When they have
empty nest, to be very, very clear, she said it very fast. Empty nest.
Empty nest syndrome. And aquatics are especially prone to that. They put all their energy into one person, whether or a group of people, whether it's their partner, their lover, their children, or people at work. And when those people leave, they have nothing else. So don't make one person
the
most
I mean,
important
with any type
source of regeneration.
With any type of regeneration, never put all your eggs in one basket. I mean, that goes for all the different types. But yes, with aquatic people, they have this tendency to convert their lovers or their best friend or this one individual, can be a grandmother. I mean, they have a lot of emotional attachment to objects and people, and sometimes they can take it to such an extreme that they don't have other stimulants in their lives that help them. So yes, be very careful. So one other thing we say with aquatic people, art is a good thing. I mean, poetry, painting, writing, I mean, whatever art, singing, whatever acting,
even
cooking. I mean, anything where you can kind of put in your emotions into there, it can be very powerful as well.
Helping people, charity, things like that. But also make it for yourself. Put some focus on giving yourself that what you're looking for in somebody else. So create a connection with you, because sometimes they make other people so important that they disconnect themselves from their real needs.
Aquatic people, to give you a little bit more context, when they're regenerated, they'll do anything for the people they love. And sometimes they go too far and maybe, I don't want to use the word submissive too strongly, but they lose themselves sometimes. They can lose themselves in relationships. They can lose themselves in certain projects. They can lose themselves for periods of time where they just kind of seek so desperately that connection that it can be overwhelming.
And not only that, they value themselves depending on the connections they have.
Yeah, their self-worth often depends on their connections with others.
And so that's why I suggest start having that deep connection with yourself.
So that's the basics of the aquatic. Then if we go into the earthly types, it's a personality that's ambiverted but leans a little bit more towards introverted. They focus a lot on taking care of people, nurturing people, having diplomacy, empathy, just kind of harmony and happiness in every environment. And for them, it's very hard to regenerate and do things for themselves. The things that tend to regenerate them, helping others is powerful if those people have gratitude. If they always say, this is not enough, you didn't do it right, you should do this, blah, blah, blah. If they're always complaining, then the self-worth of an earthly person goes down because they kind of tie their self-worth a lot with how they help people. So seeking out those relationships where they can be a positive influence in the lives of others is very powerful. But because they do have a little bit of introverted side, they do have to disconnect. So they have to do very nurturing things. It can be laying down and watching Netflix. It can be going in the hot tub and just kind of chilling in the hot tub. It can be having a nice meal. It can be things that stimulate the different senses are very powerful with earthly people. But in general, just kind of things that can disconnect them from the pressures and worries because they worry a lot about others. So if there's some environment or some activity that can help them kind of take their mind off of that, that's very powerful.
And make a conscious decision. Seriously, make a conscious decision. One of surrounding yourself with people that have gratitude. Yeah. And I will say it again. Gratitude for yourself, your achievements, and in this case, what you are creating around you. Start noticing that perhaps you're having more effect on people than you think.
Yeah.
And because one of the things, we both are earthly people, we tend to attract people that are very needy and complaining because we think we can help them. Yeah. And sometimes that drains us a lot, and we will focus on the complaints and not notice where we are doing well.
Yeah.
So
no, it's very easy to get carried away tying our self-worth and our well-being with helping and saving others. And sometimes for earthly people, they want to be everyone's savior, and that can kind of be I mean, it's good to help people, but as I said earlier, the thing about when you're in an airplane, first put the oxygen mask on yourself and then put it on the other people around you that you can assist. But if you die, if you faint before putting on that oxygen mask, you can't help others.
And I didn't allow myself, I have to admit, and that's why I had the aneurysm and whatever, because I was putting everybody else first, and there was an immediate need I perceived to do certain things, and I went totally extroverted. And the way I found myself recognizing the importance of regeneration was to really realize that when I was with my battery up, I would be more effective and kinder to people that I was trying. Because otherwise I was just doing stupid things, trying to help people without noticing the effect or anything. So when I started becoming regenerated on my earthly side, I was kinder and more effective in the way who I was helping and what was the effect. And so really it allows you to have much more energy, to help much more people, or have more impact in the people that you're already choosing to help.
Yeah, I mean, if I can give one tip for earthly people, it's understand that sometimes selfish acts can be generous acts.
Yeah.
And that's something that was very hard for me to learn because I always wanted to do selfless acts. So I would rob myself of a lot of regenerative spaces because I feel I was being selfish. I was being inconsiderate when I was doing things that were just for myself. And even today, it can be hard. When I'm drained, it's sometimes very hard to override that instinct. But, I mean, just look at Bill Gates. I mean, he had a period of his life where one could easily judge him. I mean, because he... people who have little often judge the people who have a lot. And I'm sure a lot of people judged, and still today, I'm sure many do, but there are many people who probably judged Bill Gates for many years during his richest man in the world, founder of Microsoft, entrepreneur, super filthy rich. But look at all the impact that he's having now with that money, all the illnesses he's eradicating, all the people he's helping in other continents, that those same people that might be judging might not even care about those people, and how sometimes people with high amount of resources can help a lot. And I've seen that time and time again. A lot of the most resourceful, richest, most successful people I know, many of them are actually some of the kindest, most generous. Not always. I mean, in every single walk of life, in every single environment, in every single type of, how shall I say, economic bracket, they're gonna be selfish, egotistical people, and they're gonna be generous, kind people. But I'll also say a lot of the people that we judge as selfish and egotistical are drained and insecure people that are forcing things. I mean, if you look a bit at certain political figures that might reinforce their greatness all their time, many of those things sometimes, while you have to, as a politician, demonstrate a level of confidence that's inspiring, sometimes it's very easy to cross that line into an arrogance that is forced due to insecurities. Yeah. And that's something we see time and time again. And I think a lot of people that we judge for being arrogant, selfish, inconsiderate, they're just so drained, so insecure that they're kind of forcing their greatness on people, and it's because they don't believe it themselves. So, yeah. Okay, moving on to the introverts. We have airy and metallic.
And airy, airy people, they need space. They require a lot of space because they are always thinking, analyzing, trying to see everything from every angle. Mm-hmm. So their head is working, or their brain is working so fast that they occasionally will need, or often will need, a lot of space. And it's physical space, and also their body. Don't go and get too close to their personal space, please. And you will notice also an airy person when they disappear, when you overwhelm them with requirements, when you put a lot of pressure, they tend to disappear or become mute. So give them space to think, give them space to analyze things, give them time to work it in their heads before it comes out of the mouth, because as they are introverted, they will think a lot. They will analyze a lot before it comes out and they express themselves. So it's not people that they don't have opinions or that they are very gray and have nothing to say. It's that they just require a little more time and a little more space to do it.
Yeah, I mean, the best thing you can do for an airy person if you want to help regenerate them, it's eliminate pressure, eliminate urgency, respect their privacy, respect their space. If you are an airy person yourself, give yourself permission to disconnect, have moments of solitude, but don't make the mistake of going to the extreme, because every personality requires social stimulus, some less and some more. But I've seen it with my sister. She's airy herself, and when I started, one of the mistakes I did when I was younger is I always pushed her to be more extroverted before I knew all of this. And then when I started understanding her, I went to the other extreme. I gave her so much space that she felt ignored. She felt that I didn't care, that I didn't include her. So I think the best balance with airy people is make them feel included, but don't force things on them. Don't pressure them. Don't make them feel obligated to do things. That is a very healthy balance for them. And you, as an airy person, find a way to relieve the pressure, have an internal dialogue with yourself. You know, the worst thing that can happen is this. And if this doesn't work, I can just disconnect here. I can do this. Have a backup plan, but don't go to the extreme of having 50 backup plans, because sometimes airy people need 50 backup plans.
Oh, yeah. We tend to.
She has also a bit of airy.
And
side.
I have to understand everything and put it in the little box and catalog everything. Another thing, if you're an airy person and you go to your regenerative space, and I'm talking about the passive space, actually, if you get lost in dark thoughts, it's not regenerating you.
Yeah, because one thing that we talk about is introverts. Their energy, it's not that they have less energy than extroverts. Their energy just goes inwards towards reflecting, analyzing, thinking, and it can be very stimulating and very positive to take that time to kind of analyze things. But if an airy person is getting lost in negative thoughts, in all the worst case scenarios, then they're not regenerating anymore. And that means they have to change something that's going on. And many times it's finding out what is draining them and dealing with them instead of escaping from that. And that can be a bit of a challenge for airy people, because to have the flexibility to deal with it, they have to regenerate. But I think a lot of that is having an internal conscious conversation of, okay, I need to deal with this. I need to disconnect, recharge. And if I deal with this, then my dark thoughts will go away much easier. I mean, again, we don't want to generalize, different people, different contexts. But it is something that we see that if people get stuck in the regenerative spaces, and that goes for all of them, that means there's something in their lives they're avoiding and not dealing with.
And something you want to take into account too is sometimes airy people will be very organized, but sometimes we have a mess around us. And that is a barrier we are creating for people not to invade our regenerative
It's a mess
spaces.
that the airy people who make that mess, there's still a logic to the mess. But yes, sometimes people have this idea that introverts are more organized, more clean, more tidy or whatever. And while, yes, they're generally more organized in many ways, sometimes there can be an organized mess. And sometimes that organized mess is a defense barrier, a wall, so that people don't invade their space.
And there's a very fine line between having an organized mess and just chaos.
Yeah.
When your life is turning into chaotic, when you don't know where the things are, where you are just creating more mess as a barrier for something else, look at what you're not dealing there. And it could be physical space and also your life. Sometimes we create this chaos not to allow people to come close to us. So just look at when it's regenerating that mess and when it's draining you, and deal with it.
Yeah, and then finally we have the metallic type, the most logical, structured, exact, precise, critical, to the point personality. They're the ones that really say things without filter because they don't want to waste time, and they don't feel that it's a favor. They feel that they're doing a disfavor being overly diplomatic, overly careful with their words. They feel that just being direct is the least complex, most logical solution. And for them, yes, they also need space like the air types, but they don't need as much physical space, because for them, they have an easier time disconnecting from their physical environment. They can disconnect and just be in their head, and there can be people talking to them, and they can just disconnect totally. That's something that airy people have a harder time doing. So yes, allowing themselves to disconnect, sometimes it's powerful, but generally speaking, analytical stuff, thoughtful stuff, deep stuff, not superficial stuff. They don't do well with superficial stuff. They want substance, they want analysis, they want conversations that are, deep and educated. Things that stimulate their brain can be very powerful. Also having their privacy, having an ability to disconnect, it's powerful. Having their order, their structure, having a certain routine can help them a lot, relieve a lot of pressure, because for them it can be a waste of time overthinking all the things. So if they can make a plan for the day, and execute that plan without too many distractions, that's very powerful for them. The more surprises and distractions there are along the way, the more drained they get. So having some type of routine and planning ahead, for them planning is very powerful. It's something very regenerative if they have a plan. There are many things that they can do to regenerate, but the best overall is just reducing the variables, reducing the surprises, and removing also from their lives emotional drama and things like that, because they don't understand it. It's illogical to them. It's not that they're not emotional beings. They just don't understand the processes of more kind of emotional personalities, like let's say an aquatic. And so it's not that they have to like walk away from those people, because with these tools they can actually regenerate those people and have dialogues with those people and connect with those people, but they have to eliminate the drama, and that's different from eliminating the people. Sometimes, yes, you have to eliminate some people, but sometimes it just means, okay, with this person in my life, being a little bit more flexible, being able to have a conversation where we both win, it's powerful. And that can be hard for them to grasp, but once they understand the logic in the fact that their relative or their partner might be need certain emotional expressions, and they can be like, oh, so if I send 1 or 2 messages a day saying, I care about you, I'm thinking of you, and that makes them treat me better and have less drama. That's a logical, almost, I don't want to make the conclusion that it's like a mathematical equation, because it's not always like that for metallic people, but it's just a logical, like this leads to this and this leads to this. They have to understand what leads to what. They like having instructions in relationships. They like having clarity. They don't like having to guess. They want to, okay, what exactly do you need to be happy? What exactly can I do? And if they get very exact, precise instructions, they're happy. So seeking out those exact instructions, powerful. They themselves giving very clear guidelines to the people around them, powerful. So just reducing those variables, reducing those moments that are chaotic and illogical for them is very regenerative.
Yeah.
Anything you want to add for that?
No, I'm actually thinking we should do one day a program about gifting different people.
Yeah, one fun thing is
because
exactly that.
A metallic person, you will give them something they already have, and they already like, they already have approved of, because that will regenerate them.
Yeah, they don't deal well with surprises.
They don't deal... or spontaneity. That's not something for introverts.
It can be a surprise within the context of things that are approved by them. So, like, if you ask a metallic person, what do you want for your birthday? Many times they'll be like, nothing, or they will say exactly the model. I need exactly this model from this exact store. Or they'll say nothing, anything that I need I would already have bought. Like,
yeah, that's
or just, the more of like, I like this shirt, but I'm running out of this shirt. They might have 5 of the same shirt. And maybe the one is getting old. Maybe 1 more of these shirts or something like that. But they will get very happy. Like, they're the type of person that when a mouse breaks for the computer, they might go out and buy the exact same mouse. They might have a closet with a lot of the same kind of clothes or very similar clothes. Like, if you surprise them with an item, let's say you buy them a shirt, and the angle is wrong or the texture is wrong or something is wrong, they're not going to wear it. Even if it was a gift, they're going to be like, it'll stay in the closet. So yeah, I mean, that will be a fun conversation for a different program, maybe during Christmas time or something.
Oh yeah, that would be a good idea.
But yes, I mean, for metallic people, just that kind of routine structure, predictability.
Be exact when you talk to them. Go to the point as fast as possible.
Yeah,
what
be
relevant.
precise, be fast, be efficient. Don't waste time. Yeah. Don't make the stories too long. They want to get they are actually metallic people and fire people are very similar in a lot of ways. They want logic. They want to the point. They want efficiency. They don't want too many distractions. But just one is a more extroverted personality, and one is more introverted personality. But they have a lot of similarities there.
I'm an ambivert at first. I'm an earthly person, and I love stories, and I want to tell the whole story.
Yeah.
So for my fiery people or my metallic, I tell them the beginning, the end as fast as possible. Why am I telling the story? And if they are regenerated, I can tell them the whole story. If not, they are going like, this
Get to the
woman
point.
is talking a lot. What is she trying to tell me, you know?
No, and you might even see it on my faces sometimes in these podcasts when she will go into like longer stories. My fiery side, and I also have a metallic side as a tertiary type. I'll be like, okay, get to the point. Get to the point. Okay, fill in the blank. Okay, you're gonna go into one of your stories again, and they're powerful, and a lot of people love those stories. And I sometimes can also get into the stories from my earthly side, but sometimes like that. When I'm more drained, I'll be like, okay, just give me the short version. Get to the point.
Why are you telling me the story? If I get the point, then I'm ready to listen. So just be aware of that, those differences, because when you are communicating, it is very important, and we will be talking more in the next episodes. It's very important to understand what their elements are, so you know how to communicate with them in a way that they can receive it.
Yeah, because everything we talk about here is how to receive and how to give with the different elements. So one thing is having more empathy and patience and understanding of the different personalities. Another thing is can you communicate in the most effective manner with other personalities. So I know with my mother I have to communicate things in one way, with my sister another way. I also know with my mother I have to be more flexible and patient with certain tangents and stories, and with my sister I might have to maybe try to get more out of her because she might be a little bit more private, so I might get like excess details with her, and with my sister maybe sometimes I need a little bit more clarity, well, not clarity, but a little bit more context.
When you're receiving, I want details. I want everybody to tell me all the details. And I have to understand that introverts will take a little...
They'll be more private, they'll be slower in sharing things, and we have to be more patient and respect that, not panic. I've seen parents with introverted children go in to the rooms of their children and just spy on them and go in on their computers and their devices, and like a crazy invasion of privacy. And that can be one of the worst things you can do to an introvert. You have to give them their privacy.
Yeah.
Now, of course, if you think that your introverted children are surrounded by certain bad influences, then you kind of can guide them and talk to them in a logical way. But if you come in an invasive way, you'll just push them away more, and they will isolate themselves more in those groups, in those environments.
And we get into worse trouble because we don't trust our parents, and we think we don't have anybody to confide in, because if they are already broke that, it's very difficult. I can tell you, it gets very, very difficult to share sometimes.
So we have two comments. One from Steve. I'm normally told I'm very electric, but I can remember a few times when my computer mouse broke and I would search through eBay to find the exact model and only change when the old one isn't available. And another comment from Ken, who says, I would want the same or an upgrade to my existing devices. Typically, I have a backup part to reduce downtime as well. Yeah, I mean, these things, I mean, the first answer is, yes, sometimes we have an extrovert personality, but we might also have certain things of a more introvert personality. So there might be a mix of electric with metallic in that situation. Sometimes with certain projects as well. Sometimes at work, we are more one personality than another. Sometimes in passion projects, we're more one personality than another. Those we talk about that with the 3 states. So sometimes we have those
but I
variables.
Can see why other elements would go for the same thing. For example, an earthly person, if I have found a mouse that is comfortable for my hand,
sure,
then I will look for it because it is soft, it's nice, it's comfortable. So I want the same thing. If I am fire, I will want something effective. So I know this one, I know how it works, I know how it functions. So I will look for that effective.
It's actually a very good point. One thing that we talk about in Develop Your Element sometimes, and I don't actually think we've had this conversation on the podcast yet, is it's not about what personalities do what, but why the personalities do what they do. And the same personality might do different things. So the earthly side in her might do different things than the earthly side in me. Or the fire side in her might do different things than the fire side in me. So many times with personality psychology and personality theories, we kind of see certain trends, and we sometimes fall into generalizations, and that can be dangerous because I've heard people be like, oh yeah, introverts wouldn't paint their hair, only extroverts. And it's like, I know a lot of introverts that paint their hair and they just do it differently. They do it with the motivation of, I have a routine. Every 2 weeks I change my hair color and it's part of my routine. The way, the motivation behind why they do it and how they do it, they might have started it as an experiment of how and why can I do it. I say this because we have an introverted person on the team here that he paints his hair every couple of weeks.
He
dyes his hair. Thank you. I've never dyed my hair, so it's yeah. So anyway, so he dyes his hair every couple of weeks. That's a big blunder. He dyes his hair every couple of weeks, and the first time he did it, it was like an experiment on his metallic logical side. Let me see if I can do this. What's the worst thing that can happen? He did it after one of the workshops we had. He did it as an experiment. And he had an internal dialogue with himself. He convinced himself it was a logical experiment. And then when he did it, he liked the routine of every 2 weeks changing the color. So we have to be careful not to generalize like that. And then, in the case with Ken, for example, one thing that can happen, like saying, I would want the same or an upgrade. Again, that can be different personalities. A metallic side, maybe, I want the same because I know it works, the less downtime. Or a fiery side might be like, I need the best model that's available in that given time. Want an upgrade. I want the most prestigious. And sometimes, again, different personalities can, an electric type might go like, ooh, that's kind of fun. I want this new flashy thing. But it's all about the motivator behind why those actions are taken, and not that one personality specifically will take that action.
And your tendency, it has to be more than a mouse. It has to be everything you do. It has more structure. Yeah. You really
like, what are your processes? Better. What are your processes? Yeah. That will give you a better overview than what do I do in this specific instance, because they're variables that have to be considered.
Yeah, and see how you communicate, how do you express yourself. If the way you dress, the way you move, the way your face moves is more expressive, you probably are more extroverted. If you really value the connection with people, and it's really very important for you to have that connection with people, you might have some ambiverted too.
That's not to say that other personalities don't value those connections, just that extroverts might have more friends and more constant change in the social circle, and introverts might have like more privacy and more personal space and maybe very few key individuals.
I was talking with one of my best friends, probably my best friend last night, about how somebody was calling him friend, and he was saying, we are not friends. We haven't shared anything. And I was trying to explain to him, you are airy. You are very much into the introverted side. So for you to catalog them into friendship requires certain steps, certain things you share. But for an extroverted person, just you say hello, you like each other, that's already makes you
an aquatic type or an electric type, for different reasons, for different motivators, again, different motivators, different reasons, they might call you their best friend within 5 minutes of knowing you. I just found my best friend, blah, 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 my friend. And electric people, everyone is their friends. There's a person here, Steve, everyone is their friend until maybe they do something that they're not, but he says, everyone is mi amigo. And electric people, they make friends everywhere. They can really make connections very fast. And aquatic people, they want to accelerate those connections. So also in romantic relationships, aquatic people will maybe tell you that they love you faster or express their feelings faster and catalog you as a very special person faster. So
because they are so aware of their feelings, they know what they want, they know what they require. So when they find it, they can express it very fast.
Much more ease.
Well, some of us that have more introverted elements, we have to think about it, analyze it. Yes, no. So.
Yeah. So anyway, that covers the basics of the elements and the regenerative spaces. We did cover a bit of things that kind of are a little bit kind of separate topics that we will kind of cover much deeper in future episodes. But to recap, start out with identifying what are your elements, stimulate them with the ideal level of stimulus, find the activities that fill you with energy and inner peace, eliminate deal with the situations in your life that are draining you, are stressing you. Don't escape from them. Yes, you can escape temporarily, recharge fast, and then face them. Do not get stuck escaping from them. deal with them, and then kind of also find a way to surround yourself with people who regenerate you more, support you more, that make you feel at a better state emotionally, physically, mentally, because things will be easier that way. And diversify your regenerative spaces. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Try to regenerate in as many different ways as possible, and make your life as stimulating in a positive way for you as possible. And remember that everything that we talk about here is not just for yourself. How can you regenerate your children, your employees, your friends, your family members? How can you be a source of regeneration for the people around you? Because if you can be a source of regeneration for the people around you, they are going to be kinder with you, more flexible with you, more patient with you, so you'll get drained less, and kind of that vicious circle of conflict or stress might kind of break if you take the first step. I understand that sometimes we kind of want to throw it all onto other people, and it's their fault, their responsibility, but sometimes if we take control of our lives and regenerate ourselves first and then others, things can get much easier.
And if you lasted all the program, you're still here with us, you probably are interested in our tools and what we have to offer. We have a website called developurelement.com. We have videos on YouTube. We have a Facebook group also called Develop Your Element. Follow us.
Yeah, we have daily videos on Instagram now too as well, in 2 different languages, English and Spanish. We also have channels in other languages like Portuguese and Japanese. I mean, this is a global project. We do have people all over the world. But at least in English and Spanish, I mean, we have very, very, very frequent video content. And in Portuguese, we're also working on getting more stuff out in Portuguese for the people in Brazil and Portugal that follow us, or anywhere in the world. So
also, if you want to help us translate into other languages, if you want to learn more about these tools, if you want us to talk about certain subjects, let us know, because we are interested in talking to you and sharing this with you.
We do travel a lot. We do conferences and workshops all over the world. So also if someone wants to request a workshop or conference in your country or city, let us know, and we might be able to organize something.
Thank you for all the messages, all the little hearts, all the applause, and all the thank you. When we have said something that really appealed to you, let us know. We do notice and we care about you.
Really, I mean, this project, it wouldn't be possible with everyone behind the scenes. I mean, we have a whole team here, and you guys watching us or listening to us in different parts of the world. So thank you very much for your time, your consideration, your trust, and your support. So thank you. And that covers it for today. And we'll see you next time, same place. Well, we might actually be a different place. We'll see. Have a good one.
Bye.